Welcome to the American Med Spa Podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, founder Alex Thiersch was joined by AmSpa COO Cathy Christensen and Terri Ross, owner of Terri Ross Consulting.
Okay, so this is Medical Spa Insider.
Hello.
We are sitting here with the lovely and talented Terri Ross.
Hi, everybody.
And of course, Cathy is here with us. We only have two mics, though, so we're going to be switching back and forth, which we'll have to make do. Terri, this is our second podcast. You are our first repeat. No, we had Megan Kennedy on twice, so you're our second repeat performer. Sorry.
I don't like to be seconds.
But I feel like there's a lot of synergy and just like everything has kind of come full circle because we are sitting here in Dallas and you were our very first boot camp guest and now our podcast guest, and now here you are basically a year later and we're doing another one. Incredible. Tell me your thoughts.
No, I'm super excited. It seems like it's been years, but I think our first one was when we were like all courting each other, right? Is that what was happening?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it was, Terry.
Right, Alex? We were doing the dance, and now we're here, and I'm just super excited to be part of AmSpa. And
so what's been going on? What's new?
Oh, God, I'm moving and shaking here. These boot camps are killing me, but I love it. No, I love the opportunity Yeah, I have a lot of clients, and
Well, and let's give a little backstory so everyone knows, because I think it's important. Because not everybody knows Terri Ross, because you are our first podcast host, and it's been a while. But you are a sales trainer extraordinaire, and you used to run Lasky Aesthetics in Beverly Hills, which you brought from a $300,000 to $500,000?
Yeah, it was like under $500,000 to a little over $3 million in about 4 years. Yeah.
And now you've since branched off and you have your own business, Terri Ross Consulting.
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations on that.
I'm so excited. Thank you so
awesome.
much.
And what does Terri Ross Consulting do? Give us the lowdown.
Yeah, well, the lowdown, let me back up. So thank you for the intro. I've spent my entire corporate...
You're welcome.
Thank you. I've spent my entire corporate career in, medical sales with formal sales training. So my zone of genius is really sales. And, for a long time it was to doctors. And then I moved into having the opportunity to manage a med spa myself for 5 years. And so taking that and scaling that business very quickly in a super competitive market, which was in Beverly Hills, I wanted to give back and basically teach other practices on how they could do that, whether startup and or businesses, in practice and how to scale. So what I do is help practices increase revenue, increase long-term retention, increase the customer service aspect, and really elevate their sales team to, get the practice to be generating 7 and 8 figures.
So like it's been over a year since our first podcast. What have you learned in the past year? What's been kind of the big lesson that you've had from transitioning from running a medical spa to being on your own now, running your own business? What's the biggest takeaway?
God, being an entrepreneur is it's a bitch for a lack of better words, but I love it, right? I have a little girl, she's 6. It's a hustle, but I love working with people. I love seeing the results. I love the collaboration. I love communicating and lecturing and teaching with you guys. It's just been very rewarding.
What's the most difficult thing of being an entrepreneur, a female business owner too?
I think pleasing everybody. I would tend to say I'm a people pleaser, but I'm also pretty true to my word. And what you see is what you get from me. I don't really bullshit around.
And do you have to please everybody though?
I don't have to, but I want to. And
is that a blessing or a curse?
It's a little of both. What do you
explain?
I think being one of the only female directors in a corporate setting, I have had to work my butt off to prove that, I can be an overachiever and, be pretty. I'm going to say that just because I've been, told, oh my God, I've got here for different reasons. And I think that, I have the credentials and I have the track record and I have results to prove, what I can do. So I think it's been, really trying to carve out my niche in this industry and really show people that I can, bring them value.
So that's interesting. And I don't want to wade into any kind of sketchy, like, for lack of a better word. I don't want to wade in any waters that are not politically correct, but I'm curious because, like, what is it? Do you feel like you have to work harder? And actually, Cathy, I would love for you to answer this too. Do you have to work harder as a woman? I feel like as a woman, I have to work very hard.
You know, I was going to say, when you wear that wig, I don't know.
Do you feel like there's an additional pressure or an additional amount of kind of like, do you have to prove more? I feel like there might be. What do you think about that?
I used to feel that way. I used to feel that way in the beginning of my corporate career, starting off as like one of the, I think I was like the second female director in 2 companies, a biotech company in Boston, which was doing like endocrinology. And then when I got to Medicis, I was the second, female that won over everybody else for the Beverly Hills territory. I don't so much anymore. I think it's, the evolution of life is changing and female empowerment. Cathy, what do you think?
For me, I think, I wouldn't say harder. It's just we have to worry about different things.
Yeah.
Like I have to, when I'm working with anybody in a meeting or if I'm presenting anything or if I have an idea, I have to be careful about how I deliver it. Like a guy can just deliver his idea and he doesn't have to worry about sounding like a bitch or like being pushy or being whiny or being whatever label you want to put on me that day. Like, I have to just be very careful about that. And I think it's been, I don't know if you're feeling this, like you felt this, Terri, but for me, it's like it's something you have to be just very careful about. And I'm grateful that I've been able to just be myself during this. But it's tricky to be yourself and still get things done as a woman without being labeled something.
And this was not the road I wanted to go down in this interview, but I do want to say one thing. One thing that I've noticed, total sidebar with the way that, because Cathy, for all intents and purposes, is running AmSpa, right? So she's in charge of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. People will sometimes not respond to you or give you a different answer than they'll give me. And I don't know if that's just because I'm the CEO and you're the COO, but like it's always been a weird dynamic. Yeah. I'm kind of curious, like, what you think about that. Yeah. Cathy, since you're on the podcast.
No, it's just a weird thing.
I don't know if that's because you're a woman or because what? It's just bizarre.
I think a lot of it is because,
playing sides.
You know what? Honestly, I'm really lucky because I work with Alex, who has never made it difficult to do what I need to do and say what I need to say, and but no, a lot. I've had people, I've gone to meetings instead of Alex if he's had a conflict, and they literally will not talk to me because I'm a woman. And they're not all like that, but there are a couple, and it's striking to me. Yeah. It's like, really?
It's interesting. Yeah. So, Terri, what do you love about being an entrepreneur and owning your own business?
I love being creative in terms of developing tools and resources, and really I feel like I am entrenched in this business like to the core. Yeah. And I've worked with some really high profile doctors, and I've had the luxury to be in the core, like inside of a practice. And so for me, like I just, it's not a bunch of bullshit. Like I've walked the walk. Like when I stand up there, I really pride myself on, I've done both. I have corporate and then I've been inside. So I know what it takes, and then I see the mistakes. And so,
and what is we actually touched on this in your first podcast, and for anyone who's listening, although admittedly the audio is terrible, in the first podcast we were
novice. Just forgive us.
We had the wrong software. But what is it like? What is the one thing that you see most entrepreneurs who are opening a med spa, most of whom are going to be nurse practitioners, RNs, doctors? What is the thing that they make the mistake on that you see every single time?
Oh my gosh, I don't want to give away my secrets because I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. And I teach it at my sales training course.
The people listening to this are not going to be there tomorrow.
Well, they won't be, but I want everybody to come to my sales seminar. So if I had to pick one thing, there's a lot of things, but if I had to pick one thing, it's really the lack of training, the lack of investing in your team. Yeah. I know it's costly, but at the end of the day, what is it costing you when you're losing phone calls that you don't know? What is it costing you when you don't know what happens in that consultation room and patients aren't converting? I want you to think about it that way and think about the investment that you could gain from really having, an escalated team. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to make more money. You're going to go home to your family earlier. Like, there's so many benefits to that. So
it's so interesting because we talk about this basically all day, almost every day. The biggest impediment that we see from people in this industry is just their it's not even, most of them know that they don't understand and know the business side of things, but it's the lack of engagement in trying to figure it out and stepping outside yourself and recognizing that there's things to learn, because what you're saying is true. It's every time a phone call comes in that is not answered in the correct way, where the question is asked, do you offer Ulthera or whatever it is, and the response is not given in the correct way, there's $2,500, $3,500 right there on the table. I mean, what do you tell people when they're first starting out to get them to accept that?
Well, I think I've been so fortunate again to be a part of this AmSpa that when I'm teaching. And I just was in Vegas for 2 days. They haven't even opened. They're going to open in a month. And I think if you take anything away from this is like, inspect what you expect. Look at your numbers. And if they're down, again, seek outside counsel. If you're starting out a business, invest beforehand. So you have a qualified team.
I was thinking about this before when I was getting ready for this podcast. What's the one thing you wish, like when you're talking to a client, and you're talking about sales specifically, do you ever just want to shake them and say, I want you to do this? Like, what's the one thing you really want them to do that they're not doing?
Like, engage with the client. I think the tendency...
What does that mean, though?
We'll talk about, like, dig deep. Like, I always say ask a question with a question. I always use, like, a tree branch. Like, people's tendencies are to talk and then just spit out the answer. Just spit out the answer. Right? Do you have Botox? Yes. How much do you charge? $15 a unit. Okay, click buy. Like, you've lost the call. Like, have a conversation, like, with them. Just take a step back.
What do you say?
Breathe.
So let's say I call and say, what do you charge for Botox?
I'm sorry. Can I ask your name?
My name's Alex.
Alex, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Terri with Sunshine Aesthetics. What brought you to call us today?
Sunshine Aesthetics is not a very good name for a med spa, so bye. No,
well, I had a different name in mind. It was a little R-rated. I don't want to go there right now.
No, so
but sorry, I'm just saying, there is a level of questioning. So
but seriously, I saw you on the internet, and I need to get Botox. My wife tells me I've got wrinkles, and I look old.
Great. And so, tell me a little bit about how long has that been bothering you?
It doesn't bother me. It bothers my wife.
It bothers your wife. Okay, so it's your wife that wants you to get the Botox?
She does, yeah.
Okay. Well, how do you feel about that? Because
I feel confused and conflicted and bewildered, and no, this is not. And I'm going to go write in my diary. And
don't kill yourself. It's totally fine. It's just wrinkles, sweetie.
I'm gonna go tweet. No, so but what I was
but this is where. Thank you, because this is good right now. But then you have to come to my course. No, it is but that's the thing.
Well, like, people probably say the damnedest things.
What you're saying is basically, like, I think you're absolutely right. Like, Morgan in our office is really, really good at this. It's not just like, this is the only reason I want to talk to you. So, when you're try to dig deeper, make them feel like you care, which you do. And it can actually result in something that's a little bit more. So.
Well, and I really want to get into that, because one thing that you do at our boot camps is the part that I'm always most intrigued by is you're giving your presentation and you'll do like kind of mock phone calls with yourself, right? Like you just did. And to me, that's where people are the most, like, I see everybody scribbling notes, because this is where kind of the rubber hits the road and you make your money. It's that if someone says, hey, I'm calling about, how much do you charge for Botox? The natural human tendency is to answer and then move on and provide information. But you take a different approach. And this is all based upon, human psychology and sales. And like, where did all this come from? Where did you learn to do all this?
My first position out of college was with Johnson & Johnson with Ethicon Endo. So I have been I'm going to age myself. Thank God for these non-surgical procedures. But since Lord, I don't even want to say the year. 20 years ago. No, I was selling radioactive seeds for prostate cancer in the operating room and capital equipment.
Hasn't?
I know, right? And it was old men, and it was a whole nother thing. I don't know. It's so good that I'm in aesthetics now. No, I've just had like 20 years of formal training on the mindset, the mentality, the back end of like what do people resonate with? The art of persuasion, the art of influence. And it's not like really being bullshitty, but it's really getting down to the value of something. People will automatically pay more for something they value versus just a cookie cutter med spa that offers, that we can go anywhere.
So what I think is really interesting about what you're saying, like normally when people think I want to jump into a 6, 7, 8 figure med spa, I need to make huge changes. I need to make investments. I need to do this. I need to do that. What you're actually saying is it's a first step for that is just simply tweaking your onboarding technique.
1,000%. I mean,
and that's like not what people think when they think they have to take that next step. It's not in the details, but the truth of the matter is,
it's the one thing that's often the most overlooked. They hire staff, they get a website. The majority of the time, it's somebody not in the industry. They pick the wrong equipment. I mean, that is a whole nother thing that I teach. But there's a whole host of things that are comprised of what makes a 7 and 8 figure business. But obviously, from where I sit, I think what you said, the onboarding process and making sure people know what the hell your practice is. What is your vision? What's your mission? What is the statement? Like, why are you different than down the street? Being in Beverly Hills, Alex, you've been there a couple times. We would walk around and we could throw a stone and there's like 400 practices all doing the same thing. So really take a step back from your business and ask yourself, why should people come to me? If you can't answer that, something to think about.
You talked about getting trained in the art of persuasion, the psychology of selling, different personality types.
Yeah.
Is that something that when you were at Johnson & Johnson and med assistant over the course of your career, do they actually teach you that?
You do. I have luckily...
What do they teach you? Do they give you personality?
I mean, you're in...
I've
taken MBTI, Myers-Briggs, DISC, predictive index. You can't, thank you. I'm so fortunate that as a female back in the day when it was all men, I've escalated my level up to being a VP of sales, but I didn't, I had to work my way into that. But you are tested rigorously to see if you can lead. Can you close business? Can you sell? Can you launch?
And what is that? What do those tests show you? And what's the benefit of doing that?
I mean, really, it's interesting. Kind of your leadership skills, how well you accept failure. What is your style of directiveness with the MBTI, right? They have 4 different personality styles. How you can accept a no and rejection. If you are just driven and, you can persevere through the no, because sales is a lot of no's. But the no's get to a yes.
And taking all that training, how does that relate to selling aesthetics? Because now you're here and it's not selling prostate cancer.
This is what I say. You can imagine, I won't use Medicis because that was when Restylane and Juvederm were kind of just launching, but I was given the opportunity to launch Cool Sculpting in the US and Canada. So this was back in 2010. And there was a lot of different fat devices on the market at the time. The Zerono that had the light that, was of a laser pointer, Vela shape. There was a lot of garbage. And I took on that task. I think I was the 8th person hired. And I'm trying to launch this piece of equipment, not even FDA approved yet. But again, it's around the mentality of what is in the interest of the buyer, whether it's a patient or the doctor. What value can I bring to you? What is it going to mean to you? What's the outcome? What's the result? People come to aesthetics and they buy value and then they buy a feeling. I don't buy Cool Sculpting. I buy the feeling that if I get Cool Sculpting, I'm going to look thinner. But again, it's that mentality.
In one of the examples you use at the boot camps, somebody calls a practice and asks for a specific treatment that they've seen, whether it's online or on a commercial, that you don't have, right? And instead of just saying, no, we don't have that, thanks, bye.
Which happens all the time, by the way.
Right. So how do you get over that objection, and what's the kind of thought process behind it?
So it kind of goes back to what we said and what Cathy said with the onboarding. It's number one, knowing like I teach I put the buckets, right? Like 6 categories. It's knowing what they were asking for. So if they asked for something we didn't have, if let's just say they asked for Althera, which is ultrasound, but the practice has Thermage, at the end of the day, they want skin tightening. If you don't know that, you're going to miss the call and you've lost $3,000-$4,000. So I would say to that person, oh, I'm sorry. Again, what is your name? Okay, so Alex, it sounds like you're interested in skin tightening. Is that correct? Let me ask you a little bit more questions, or, I'd love to get to know you a little bit more.
Well, so what if my response is, well, look, yeah, but I saw, my friend had Althera and that's what I want.
I would keep, again, back to those questioning. What specifically about Althera are you interested in, and why that particular treatment?
And you just keep the conversation.
You got to pick. You got to pick apart,
yeah.
But be really good and feel very confident in your ability to ask questions where it's not aggressive or defensive, but that you just know your shit. And so I know I could get it to. I know I can get you to overcome that.
That's the thing, that the employees have to know.
You got to know your stuff, but that's where here I am.
But no, and I would say, or I guess I would ask you this. When you go to a practice and do your basic assessment of where the employees are, where the trainers are, I mean, how often do you say, wow, these guys know they know the products up and down. They know everything.
Honestly?
That's a weird look you're making on your face.
It's sad. It's really sad. It's not often at all.
And that's just elbow grease, like making sure that your team knows what you do, right?
I know. Yes, it is. But again, I think that, and I hate to say it, I think that I have the integrity and the credibility to speak, because I've been doing it for a long time with a lot of practices around the country, actually. And I think the tendencies are, I'm just going to hire this girl, and she's cute, and I'm going to pay her $15 an hour to get the phone, and she can book appointments. Like, that's the mentality. Or they're a clinician and they might be a really amazing provider, right? But then no one knows what happens when that door closes. And then no one's tracking, like, what happens when you come out. So if the patient doesn't book, so like no one knows what the conversion rates should be. I mean, there's just a cascade of things. I mean, I think every practice has the ability to be amazing if they would actually just, take the time and, again, come here, get educated, invest back in the business, not think that I need to go spend more money on marketing and on a billboard, but like put it back in your people.
Looking to open or improve your medical aesthetic practice or medical spa? Look no further than AmSpa's Medical Spa and Aesthetic Boot Camps, which are intense 2-day training seminars covering legal and best practices in the medical spa industry. Both physicians and non-physicians alike will gain the tools to open and or run an efficient, profitable, and legally compliant medical spa or aesthetic practice. AmSpa is hosting 3 more boot camps in 2019 in Dallas, New York, and Orlando. Next up, join AmSpa's boot camp at the Doubletree Campbell Center in Dallas, Texas on September 14th and 15th. To save $50 on registration for boot camps, use the promo code POD50 at checkout. For more information or to register, log on to www.americanmedspa.org or call 312-981-0993.
So the first question I wrote down when I was taking notes and preparing was, can anyone be taught to be good at sales? Or is there some innate, like, you must have talked to some of the most dead weight, just wet rag type of people. Can anybody learn it if they want to?
No. No. I mean, think about that. We talked about like personality testing. If somebody's an analytical person, that is somebody who would rather, count beans or, count the retail in the back and not be somebody who should be sitting up front answering phones. No, I think people need to be put in the best position so that they are successful.
So part of what business owners in this industry should be doing is identifying the people that are good at this type of thing and those who are not.
100%. I was in Vegas for the last 2 days training a practice that's going to open in a month. We decided when I taught my sales program, he decided he was going to give everybody a personality test to make sure they were in the right position.
Do you recommend that?
I do.
And just the thought behind that is
I think even for people interviewing for a job, for a position or hiring for a position, it really tells you at the core someone's strengths and weaknesses and where they're going to be most beneficial and advantageous within the practice. It'll tell you the weaknesses too. And again, you can't really f around with who you are at the core. You can't
we
really.
actually had a bet as to whether or not you say the word on the podcast, and you just totally did.
Sorry, I know. So people that know me,
I think I won.
What you see is what you get, right? People that know me, so right.
We did have a bet, and you did win.
Oh, he won?
Question, what I want to know from your personality, what I want to know is there are lots of personality, first two things, right? Lots of personality tests out there. Which one do you feel like is a great one, or a couple, whatever? And then beyond that, as an owner, you get the results of the personality test. Then what exactly do you do with them?
Great question, Cathy. I mean, two things.
That was a great question, Cathy. Congratulations.
Myers-Briggs is really legit, probably one of the best, but I would say
which one?
Myers-Briggs. But it's probably for a far further advanced level of precision.
Have another drink, Terry.
Stop. I haven't even finished my first one. Let's cut me some slack. But I would say the DISC profile, DISC, D-I-S-C, is
D-I-S-C?
Yes.
What is that? What is that?
Not
What is
that? I was going to say something I maybe shouldn't. Not DISC profile, DISC profile.
That's a different.
I know. It's a totally different profile. No, DISC. It's affordable, and it will give you a robust report.
So you're saying the DIC test will give you a robust report?
Wait a minute, what?
My
Listen,
God.
he's taking it in a very different direction than I did.
This in
Calling HR. Not the kind of test.
Does DISC stand? Is that an acronym, or does it? Is it?
I don't know. I don't know that much.
Okay.
I don't know what that stands for.
Okay. But it's a good one.
it's a
really selling this.
It's a great one. Sorry, I don't know the acronym. We could Google it right now. I could make some terminology. I could make some things up if you wanted me to. That would probably be really good.
So then the next part of Cathy's question, you get the results. What do you do with that? Like, how do you? Because
So number one, I'm gonna say that I think that personality tests should be given before you hire somebody. So that way you can weed out if they're going to be a good fit or not, or perhaps they might be a good fit for a different position you anticipated them for. And or if it's after the fact, you can either make adjustments within the company to move people in the right direction or in the right position, coach them up or coach them out.
So what if you are looking to hire, like, when you're retained for all sorts of reasons, and oftentimes I think about like how you possibly have a free moment in your day, because everyone just wants you to come in and basically like do things for them. When you're looking for like a quality injector, let's say, who is both obviously experienced and knows what they're doing, but then is also good at sales, what do you look for? Are there some certain personality traits that you look for? Or do you look for past experience, or what's the...
I mean, I'll listen. These are my own opinions, but from best practices. So I would say that I have a little clout here. Obviously, somebody I think really outgoing and gregarious, somebody who can have the ability to, really engage and get to know the client. I mean, they care more about the client than they care about just selling a bunch of syringes to make money. And the ability to understand that, it's a short-term symptom to sell one or two syringes, right? If you can't get the outcome. So somebody who can look at the patient really holistically and build a treatment plan, and who's not afraid to educate. I talk a lot about sales, and I'll give a lecture here, but selling is really about educating. And as a provider, if you can't do that and you let them walk out the door, you've just lost money and you've lost that long-term retention. So
and you have a pretty, like, when you teach consultations, which is essentially selling what the practice has to offer. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want people to do 45-minute consultations that encompass everything, and that's got to be pretty tough for people to accept, because there's certain people who just want they want to churn and burn, get people in and out. Like, what's the benefit to doing a more a longer consult?
I'll answer it two ways. Number one, Alex mentioned, I was managing Lasky, and that was back in 2014. At the time, it was like under $500,000. In 1 year, in that competitive environment, we grew $622,000 in 1 year with no systems, no infrastructure, one provider, 3 rooms. So,
why was that? Like, what was the one thing that made that happen?
There was no one thing. It was the ability to take a look at a business and say, how am I going to compete in this environment when I could walk out the door and there was hundreds of people? But it was looking at the entire infrastructure. And then me, thank God, having like the wherewithal and having an aesthetic background, that I just had enough business acumen and resources to say, this is the way it's got to work. Like, you don't deviate from that. And
how did the consult process help with that?
I mean, again, I felt like, if you look at how people can differentiate themselves, it's I always say it's a 1% change, and there's a lot of places you could call and just walk in and get the IPL, walk in and get the whatever you want, and I guess myself and the people that were working at Lasky made a conscious decision to say we value the patient, and if they have one thing wrong, they probably have multiple things wrong, and instead of them having shopping at multiple places, let's really take a look at them like holistically so they feel cared for, they feel heard, and it obviously resulted in a huge success. So,
hey, hi. So, yes, I want to circle back, though, to talking about kind of the personalities and what's successful in a med spa, what you look for. Along the same lines, there's a lot of turnover in the medical spa industry. So do you have any insight on the red flags for not so the goal is you want to hire someone who's great, who's not crazy, who's not going to be the bad apple on your team. I know it can be tricky sometimes. Do you have any tips on how to identify what to look for? Because
how do you identify crazy?
Right. How do you yeah.
The crazy is a couple things. The duck lip crazy. Big boobs are great. Listen, but when they're hanging out of your outfit on the interview, that's not great.
Well,
what do you mean?
More about, it takes one bad apple to ruin everything, right? Yes. So what are the tips to not bring that person in the first place? The boobs and the duck lips, right? Hanging out of the top.
So duck lips, boobs hanging out, that's a red flag.
Hanging out.
And they want free treatments. No. I would say have people come in and shadow. Really, before you make an offer, have them come in for a day or two and shadow whatever role it's going to be, whether it's a clinician or the front desk. Have them shadow what the job's going to be so they can see how the place operates, how it functions, what the expectations might be. So there is a mutual agreement of the job, and then you get to see somebody's personality. Are they going to be proactive? If the phone's ringing and I'm observing, I'm going to just pick it up if I want the job that bad enough, and just say what I think I'm going to say, even if I don't have a script. And I think you can tell a lot about that shadow.
Nobody does that.
Nobody does what?
Shadowing. Seriously, nobody.
Well, they do.
No,
they work with me.
And I'm just kind of people think it's a good idea, but to implement that and say, we're going to have someone come in and chat, nobody does that.
Plus, I feel the really crazy ones can hold out for a good long time before they let their crazy out. Yeah.
Before the switch flips.
On the bed, naked, waiting for M-Sculpt or something. I don't know. Sometimes
does that happen?
Well, I have some stories I could share.
I feel like we should have a whole different series.
We should. we should. So I do want
to. Yes, Terri.
So I do want to, because one of the things that you do, and I want to get into this specifically, is your kind of specialty, you called it your zone of genius, which I think is a great way to put it, is you train people formally through seminars where people will come to LA and learn, or you'll go on site and train them. Let's talk about your on-site training, your training that you're hosting in LA. When is that going to be?
Yeah, no, I'm so excited.
When is this going to be?
It's October 26th and 27th.
Okay.
In Manhattan Beach, which is amazing, right by the ocean where I live. It's a day and a half. Okay. Where, number one, I think there's always like benefits to interact with your peers and socialize and learn from other people. But I have really developed what I call like the practice foundational elements from, again, my really real world experience of what I think it takes in the core fundamentals. There's 5 modules within the program that have really proven to, escalate businesses tenfold.
Well, what's the if someone's going to come to this trend, like what should they expect to learn? What's their takeaway?
Yeah, great question. So we're going to go through a couple things.
Thank you.
So the modules are based around, obviously the vision, the mission of the business. The first module is, I think, around expert phone skills and what that takes, that's required. Second module is around handling web leads, the statistics around that, processes and script on that. The third is on the consultation process, which is a really huge component that we focus a lot of time on, a lot of role playing. The fourth is the close. How to get through objections. I think that's one of the things people have a really hard time with. And then the fifth is looking at key performance indicators for the practice and then putting it all together.
So who should be coming to this?
It's interesting because I have gotten a lot of feedback, especially me being in Beverly Hills, and a lot of my ex-clients, like some of my old doctors want to come. It's really for anybody. I think it's for, it's for the staff, anybody. I think anybody who's customer facing. If you are dealing with customers on any level, whether it's phone, patient care coordinator, a provider, a physician, anybody who's customer facing that really wants to improve what I said earlier, in increasing the revenue, like improving the customer experience, because again, that's what it is, and building that long-term retention, you will walk away with learning those tools.
And so do you do like actual role playing?
Oh, yes.
And so like what is that?
So the manual's around, it's about 75 pages. I mean, there are scripts, there are role play scenarios. We'll break apart people in groups and then we'll practice, and people, if they feel comfortable, can do it with me.
What's your favorite script? Like your favorite?
I'm not going to share that. That's really, proprietary for the seminar. That is when you get me one-on-one. That's the special.
Is there one like go-to line when you're trying to close somebody that you just know in your back pocket, like this is going to work?
Yes, there is actually.
What is it?
People come in and they say they have a problem, right? I'm unhappy with the fat on my belly. Okay, so that was their initial, right? Yeah, I know, Alex. I know, sweetie. We've been talking about that for years, honey. I know.
Cool sculpting is not going to fix this.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that later.
So I want to flip it on its head a little bit. So from your perspective, what do you say to the doctor, and this is usually doctors, who says, I don't want to use any of those tactics, and I use the word tactics kind of, and that's not what I mean, because sales is about education and trust, right? But they don't want to be trained on trying to convince somebody to do something like that because this is medicine, they should do it because it's good for them. What do you tell that person who says this is not right, I should not be learning how to sell medicine, I should just be doing what's right for the patient? I mean, that's just I hate to say it, unfortunately, that's just a horrible philosophy. That's not what it is, though, and that's not what I'm teaching, and it's not what I'm doing. So, well, that's what I think you're teaching. Like if I'm this doctor, right? So, right. Okay, so you're thinking that I'm being overly aggressive. Like I'm from the old guard, and I say, look, this is medicine. I shouldn't be forcing this on anybody. I'm a healer. I'm not a. So this is what I say, and I'll use different analogies in different therapeutic areas. Cosmetic medicine, plastic surgery, or med spa is still medicine, despite that it's disposable income and people are trying to look and feel better about themselves. It's still medicine. So heaven forbid somebody has cancer or a heart problem. You expect to go to the cardiologist, right, or the oncologist to give you and educate you on the best course of treatment, right? Right? Is he overselling me on the chemo and radiation I need? I don't think they're selling you on anything. Okay, but they're educating, right? Needed. Yeah. So I think when you're a good practitioner in aesthetic medicine, it's the same level. It's the same sort of philosophy. But if I come in and I say, hey, I've got some wrinkles on my forehead that bother me, or I've got this double chin that's hanging out of my man boobs. Like, what? And you tell me, well, to make yourself better, you're going to need
I wouldn't do
IPL,
that.
you're gonna need
See, that's what I'm saying.
You're going to need this.
But I wouldn't do that. So
that,
do you see what you just did?
Massive
You're going to need
surgery.
it all. You're going to need a whole, right. No. But see, that's the problem, right? Alex, you jumped, not that we're having a conversation, but you went right to the solution. And everybody goes right, they listen and then they go right to like, okay, here's what I can do for you. I want you to stop. I want you to take a minute. I don't want you to say anything. I want you to just sit there and get to know Alex. How long has your, chin down to your double boobs been bothering you? Have you had that your whole life?
I didn't say double boobs. But thank you for pointing that out, Terry.
Well, I recognized that. So
okay, but get back to what you're saying. So, like, what does getting to know me, like, how does that help?
But if a provider is in that room actually wanting to understand, like, what are the circumstances behind the problem? Right? There's a lot of value in knowing that. I mean, are you right? What's your lifestyle? Where do you live? How long has it been bothering you? Have you done anything else in the past to overcome it? Did it work? Did it not work? Do you see? I would ask. I probably rattled off 6 or 7 questions before I said one thing.
And how does that help the process, though?
Because the process is at that point in time. Now I feel really good about now we're building this trusting, bonding relationship where I feel really good about you. The provider's actually taken not just spewing off that's I need 5 treatments to cost that is going to cost me $5,000, but they're actually taking the time to get to know me. So by the time that 30 to 45 minutes is done, I am like, we're hugging and I'm like, oh my God, this was the greatest consult I've ever had. No one's ever taken the time to actually really get to know me. And unless you've been there and seen it, I mean, I just know firsthand. I have multiple case studies of how it works.
Well, so, and again, not to play too much devil's advocate, it works great because you're doing it and you're awesome at it.
No, I'm teaching it. I wasn't in the room. I teach it.
But like, if I did that, someone would call the police and throw me in jail because I'd be creepy.
If I were to take a step back and kind of analyze what you're doing, is you're tapping into the emotional aspect of what people are coming to you for. It's not just a transaction, right? It's something. It's something more. And I think,
what I said earlier, Cathy,
right?
Totally on point. People buy. They're buying the feeling associated. I come in, I feel shitty about myself. I have a problem. I can go a lot of places for the solution, but I want to know I'm cared for. And I want to know, again, credentialing is a whole other thing we didn't get into, but what is the level of expertise of the place, of the location, of the provider who's doing it? Not just a technician who took a weekend course. Right. So you were dead exactly right. The emotions.
That's something, it's so hard I honestly just personally, it's so hard. I like things that are quantifiable, and that's not quantifiable, but it's such a part of what you're doing.
Well, you're an analytical personality, so there's a little bit of both.
Right.
You want to feel good about the outcome, right? If you're going to spend the money.
I also want to know I'm with the right person. Mm-hmm. But I think you're tapping into that little unknown, right? The thing that is really important to them.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and getting them to want to open up in a way that is,
because this stuff is terrible. Like, you're talking about the things that bother people the most.
Absolutely,
they're the only ones that totally obsess over it. Mm-hmm. So.
Great point.
And along those lines, I've spoken to many aesthetic injectors, and they all say the same thing, that you end up being almost a counselor. Yeah. And is it because you're talking about the things that really bother people about themselves, and they're opening up to in a way that they don't open up to other people, and that's what you're teaching them to kind of tap into?
That's exactly right. It's more of an emotional connection. It's more of a mindset. Absolutely, yeah.
Combined with specific techniques that you can
yes.
And there are and that does exist. There are, I made kind of light of it, but not everybody can be a great salesperson, but there are certain things that you can learn and practice that will make you better at it.
Yeah, I mean, even these 2 days I spent with in Vegas, one of the nurses was a trainer for MERS for 12 years, a clinical trainer. And when I was going through my training program, she literally said, I've never had anyone teach it to me this way. I go in with an objective to give an answer. And I'm like, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to get there over time. But in her mind, she felt she did not like the concept of doing a whole treatment plan. She didn't. But by the end of the 2 days, she had a very different philosophy.
So you do the training in Manhattan Beach, and then you also do on-site training for people's practices where you go in and teach on-site.
Yes, I do it both ways.
What does
Seminar
that consist
style.
of?
I'll come into the practice for 2 days, and I'll do half a day of evaluation of the practice, really get to know the staff, and interview each person, and then we'll just dive in.
Are you ready for the what's inside Terri Ross's head portion of the podcast? Because we've been going for 45 minutes.
We have.
We want to keep this under an hour.
I know. Yes.
We have some very hard hitting questions that I want to ask you that I've looked up.
All right. Well,
on Google.
I'll try to answer them.
First question: who in your life has had the biggest influence on you?
My little girl, my daughter. She's 6. She's amazing. She inspires me. She motivates me. She makes me be a better person, and she makes me just want to get up and do what I do. And she is a little AmSpa mascot. She's always in the little back with her name badge, Terri Ross Consulting.
That's awesome. Another question that I wrote down that I wanted to ask. If you were me interviewing you, what's the one question you would want to ask yourself?
Oh my god!
The most hard-hitting question that you would ask.
You're going to trip me up right now. I normally
Silence.
don't. I know because I normally don't get tripped up, but I am right now. Can I take a pause?
You can take a pause and think about that.
Okay.
But so what would I ask? What would you ask yourself if you were me?
Yeah.
What's your biggest? Not your biggest. What's something that you failed at, and what have you learned from it? I gave you these questions ahead of time. You didn't
I know.
Them.
Well, because we jumped right in. Listen, I'm sure I failed at a lot of things.
I could ask you what your favorite curse word is, but we already know what that is.
I know. For those of you that know. No, listen, failure's just, the next step to be better. So I don't think there's one thing. I'm sure I failed at a lot of things. Well, yeah, I won't say one specific.
This is not going the way that I thought it would be. What profession other than...
But at least I can take my own accountability. Right? Listen, no, I'm not the best, but I strive to be. And you fall, you get back up, and yeah. Let me ask you.
Yeah.
What I would like to ask you, Alex. What have you failed at?
Let's see. This morning, I was really upset because I couldn't get my shoe tied. And that bothers me sometimes when you're running late for a plane, and then the
little things.
The Uber's there, and then the dog starts barking, and then your shoes falls off. That's the biggest thing that I failed at. What I learned was I need to chill out sometimes and just Velcro.
Or just flip flops or something. I get it. Right?
No,
simplify your life.
I have some big failures. Some. But, and I think this is kind of what you're saying, and this is the way that I feel, and although this is not the Alex Thiersch being interviewed by Terri Ross podcast, I will answer it anyway. I don't like to look at anything like a failure, because one of the biggest things that when I have a professional failure or whatever it is where I'm trying to achieve something and I don't, and it's disappointing, there's two ways to look at it. You can look at it you failed, or you can say, okay, what did I do wrong? How do I learn from it? How do I do better so the next time I don't? And that's honest to God, that's the way that I look at things. So
touché.
I don't fail. I improve.
I am the bomb.
And you're going to see me with slip-ons and Velcro from here on out.
And a gold chain.
So, all right. Last question. What profession other than your own would you like to try?
Would I like to try?
Yeah.
I want to be a doctor. I would be a doctor.
Really?
Yeah.
And you went to medical school,
listen,
right?
No. Maybe I would be a dancer because, I have that background, right?
Tell me more about that.
Well, I did a little dance for Marky Mark back in the day. But
so were you a member of the Funky Bunch? I mean, were you?
No, not a member, honey. No, not a member, but I did dance in his concert twice.
So you were like a funky
I was a you know I
Wait,
I,
which concert did you dance in?
what do you mean?
Like the LA Forum,
I was living in Michigan.
United Center.
He was my friend was opening up
The
for
Palace?
him. They needed a backup dancer, and I just I got called in to
And you danced at his concert?
feel good with those those Calvin Klein underwear.
So you're an actual Funky Bunch dancer.
Yes, yeah. Nobody knows that, but you do now. So
Wow.
But
That
Alex likes
changes
to tell
everything.
everybody, so
No,
I thought I would just expose myself.
Well, but I didn't know you danced at a concert.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
I know. Yeah, but I got it together, and now I'm right.
So you'd rather be that than a doctor?
No. I do love to dance, but I would rather keep myself in the medical profession.
Didn't you go to But you went to medical
for
school.
2 years. I did, and then I thought my personality was more suited
And
to.
then you met Marky Mark.
Well, no, yeah, well.
Everybody.
God, right? I
How
mean,
many
who
times
wouldn't
have
want to
we
be
heard
Marky?
that
I'm sure you would
story?
want to, dance for Marky Mark too.
Who says I haven't? All right, Terry, anything else? What else do you want to say? Seriously, what else is on your mind?
No, this is amazing. What's on my mind is honestly incredible opportunities. I think a lot of knowledge. This field is growing leaps and bounds. And if you're going to be in this space, do it right. Just do it right. That's what I want to leave you with.
Well said. So nice to have you back.
Thank you.
In
for
1 year
having
from
me.
now, you'll come back again. We'll
Oh.
make this a thing every year
I'm so
when we're in
fortunate.
Dallas.
With these microphones are really fascinating.
And
too.
if you want to
They're
know what we're talking about, just check out the Instagram feed because you'll see them. All right, Terry, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week with the American Med Spa podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, Alex Thiersch was joined by AmSpa COO Cathy Christensen and Terri Ross, owner of Terri Ross Consulting.